Today, probably right at this very moment, there are children in completely different parts of this world who are going through an impactful experience. They're having a coming-of-age event where their community comes together, highlights that moment that the child begins their journey to adulthood, and marks the trail for them along the way. Maybe it's a young Maasai tribesman in Kenya preparing to start warrior training, or a Navajo girl here in the American Southwest getting ready for her 4-day Kinalda ceremony, or a boy on the island of Vanuatu in the South Pacific. That looks fun. Or a child in the Inuit tradition in Alaska. And on. From Africa to the Arctic, from the Amazon to Australia, us humans have clearly recognized that this is important for our kids. And yet, most of us in our society don't have any such event. I didn't have any intentional ritual when I was a young teen. How many of you did? A couple hands go up. Not very many. And it's still the same for kids today. They do not benefit from this kind of event because we haven't created a way that we approach this. But I think we can, and I definitely think we should. Now, today I'm going to tell you the story of our family and our efforts to create events for our kids. And I hope by the end of this talk that every single one of you wants to create an event for a child in your life, whether it's your daughters, your sons, nieces, nephews, grandchildren, or your friends. So our story begins when our oldest son was 13. He was about to go through his bar mitzvah. That's a coming-of-age event in the Jewish tradition. It's a great event, and we were looking to expand the scope. There was additional lessons we wanted to teach, and there were some important adults in his life we wanted to fully and intimately include in this process, some of whom weren't Jewish. So, of course, there wasn't a way to do that. We knew how to do this, so we started doing some internet research. First thing that struck us was that these events are amazingly common throughout the world. Mostly they take place when a kid's around 13, give or take a year or two, which is funny if you think about it, that all these independent societies, completely not talking to one another, all figured out, you got to get this done early, because by the time the kid is 16 or 17, apparently they know everything anyway. They don't need any help from the likes of you. So we didn't really just want to copy what some other society did. However, we did notice that there were some really clear themes running through all these diverse set of events that kind of served as a blueprint that we could follow. The first theme was ritual. So you create a ritual for something to say, hey, this is important, it's a big deal, pay attention. This isn't something we're going to talk about over dinner or on the way home from soccer practice. The next big theme that you notice when you look at these is community. So it expands beyond the parents to the broader community who are there to provide support and share their collective wisdom. We've all heard the phrase, it takes a village. The next big theme are lessons. Really, this is what these events are all about, that there are life skills we want to teach, there are character traits, our values that we want to pass along. And then finally, this sense of challenge. When you achieve something difficult, it's memorable, it's really meaningful. These are definitely not every kid gets a ribbon kind of events. So now we saw this blueprint. We decided, okay, we're going to actually create unique rituals for each of our 3 children when they turn 13 so that they too can benefit from having a community that comes together, highlights the moment they begin that journey to adulthood, and marks the trail for them along the way. So we decided about a ritual. Now we need a community. Who's going to be part of that coming-of-age team? Adults that we could count on to share wisdom and also be part of the kids' support structure. You could probably think right now of the kind of people that you would want included in such an event. Family, maybe not all of your family. We all have some. Some of you I know very well, so I know for sure. Friends, maybe very important teachers, coaches in the kid's life. Then we had to think about what lessons do we want to teach? What life skills are most important to us? What character traits do we really want to pass along? And then with the coming-of-age team, how do we create a set of challenges that really reinforce those lessons? So I mentioned there's a couple kinds of lessons. That you got life skills and you got character traits. I'll give you some examples of what we did so you get an idea how it works. So for life skills, things like fun things, like putting a kid through a grueling set of fake job interviews and giving them very harsh feedback so that they learn how to be good at job interviews. I said challenge was important. Just not everybody gets a ribbon. Or how to quickly change a mountain bike tire under extreme pressure, being heckled by your coming-of-age team. Or packing a ridiculous amount of family camping gear in the back of a Subaru Outback. I mean, this is Ben. There's stuff you got to know. And then character traits. A little trickier to create an event for a character trait. I will share with you, though, how it went. We did 5 or 6 for each of our kids, the things that we were really focused on. There are 3 that I'll share the stories with you so you get an idea of how you could do it. So the first trait that really mattered to us was grit. That ability to really dig deep in pursuit of a goal. It's important in sports, it's important in school, it's important in life in general. It's key to achievement. My wife and I are former middle distance runners. We thought a timed mile run is a pretty good way to test grit. Now, we knew our son's fastest mile time from gym class, and he was pretty sure that that was as fast as he could go. But if we're honest with ourselves, did anybody ever really try their absolute hardest in middle school gym class? We didn't think so either. We figured with a little bit of grit, he could run faster. Now, his first assumption was that he was racing against his mother, which really concerned him, and it should. But when I stripped down to my college track uniform, which I'm the one with the C. When I stripped down to my college track uniform, which miraculously had shrunk so much since I had worn it 20 years ago, he thought he was racing me, and you can see by the look on his face how worried he was about that. But we explained, no, grit is actually about doing better than you've ever done, pushing yourself to new heights. So with the coming-of-age team around the track cheering him on and calling out splits, he dug really deep, crushed his best time by more than 30 seconds, and we were in a great position. We didn't have to say anything. As he splayed out on the track and he's gasping for air, you can bet that message was driven home very well for him, that when you really dig deep and use that reserve of grit, which you know is there, you can do things you might have previously thought were impossible. Resourcefulness was another trait that we were really focused on. And I'll tell you what we did there. So you're in the passenger seat of that same Subaru Outback. This is Ben. Pull up in front of the grocery store. I pull out an egg. You see this fragile egg? You're going to need to drop this egg from the second story of the house. This is your challenge. You've got this $5 bill, and you've got just 5 minutes to get in there and buy stuff that you'll use to cushion the egg. And everything you use has to be edible. Go. It's the gift of a constraint. So I can see some wheels turning, asking yourselves, what food would I use to cushion an egg? I don't want to ruin it for you because you may run right home and try it. I can tell you that there are at least 3 ways to solve this problem. Our kids use completely different kinds of foods, all of it sprinkled with a good dose of resourcefulness, and they all of the eggs manage to survive. They survive the fall. Breakfast the next day is another story. These coming-of-age events make you very, very hungry. So patience was another test that we were interested in pushing. Not just any kind of patience, that special kind of patience a parent needs when dealing with kids. Does anyone know the kind I'm talking about? So this test actually a good combination of both a life skill, building stuff, and a character trait, patience. So I'll tell you what we did, and you ask yourself how you would do on this test, but you got to promise to be honest, at least with yourself. So you got 25 minutes to build an IKEA bookcase. I actually didn't expect anyone to already think that was hard. It gets worse. So you got all the materials laid out, got all your tools, including that funny tool you never know what to do with when you get something from IKEA, and you got 10 of them in the drawer. And you have these bewildering instructions in front of you. Just as you're about to start the watch, the neighbor shows up with her 3-year-old and 6-year-old. This test, like all the best tests, have a twist. And the twist is, while you're doing this test, you need to watch these kids. She has to go run some errands. You need to include them in the project, but don't worry, they're here to help. Yeah. Sounds like many of you have been there. I've certainly been there. You don't know funny till you see a 3-year-old in bench press position holding a plank while her 6-year-old brother tries to screw it in. So he included the kids very well. They had jobs to do, they were doing stuff, and at the end of the 25 minutes, something approximating a bookcase got built. I wouldn't then, and I still won't, put anything breakable or valuable on it. So we got partial marks for the effort, but full marks for exhibiting patience and really pulling the kids into the project and making sure they had fun and they were involved. And what we got, in addition to a rickety bookcase, was the opportunity to reinforce that lesson. Now, we could have talked about these things all the time: grit, resourcefulness, patience. We did talk about them all the time. We did our best to model them, but nothing can really distill all that teaching that we do all the time with our kids, the things we're trying to show them, like a well-crafted challenge that really drives the point home. And that's phase 1 of a coming-of-age event. Set of challenges that reinforce lessons. Phase 2 is sharing wisdom. And that's the part that gets really touching for everyone involved, and the coming-of-age team really gets to shine during this phase. So keep in mind, though, these coming-of-age teams, they're made up of people that may not all know one another before the event begins. They're from different parts of the kid's life. But you can bet by the time they finish designing the challenges, participating in the challenges, being part of everything, they're really bonded. They're bonded to the kid, they're bonded to each other, they're a team. So I will give you the same challenge that we gave all of the coming-of-age team members, which is this. Think about what you would go back and tell your 13-year-old self. What advice would you go back and give your 13-year-old self if you could travel back in time? Don't shout it out. Keep it to yourself. And now think about what it would have meant to you at 13 years old to have all the important adults in your life talking to you in a way probably they never had before, being fully transparent, really vulnerable, sharing their stories and their wisdom, much of it earned the hard way through mistakes. Mistakes maybe you won't now have to make because someone shared their wisdom with you. So for our boys, we did this wisdom sharing on a walk. Down at Riverbend Park, it's just past dawn. There's mist rising up off the Deschutes. The whole coming-of-age team, about 10 men, set off down the river trail, one man stopping every 5 minutes, so that every man will have 5 minutes one-on-one with our son to give their particular piece of advice. Heads off with the first man, big, strong guy, who says, when I was in high school, I was a bully. I picked on kids that were weaker than me, not as popular as me, and even all these years later, I still regret it. If I could go back, I would choose the more courageous path of standing up for the kids that were getting picked on. And when you have a choice, choose the courageous path too. He hands off to the next man, who explains that it's a sign of strength, not a sign of weakness, for a man to know when he needs help, to ask for it, and to accept it when it's offered. The next man then shares his point of view on how you recognize whether someone you're dating may be the one. The next man talks about leading with your head or your heart or your gut in certain different kinds of decision-making. And so on, all around the trail, man after man after man sharing their wisdom. For our daughter, we structured things a little bit differently. It's a beautiful Central Oregon summer day, just like today. It's sunny, it's warm, and they're in a loose circle on the grass. They've all got a letter that they'll leave behind with our daughter, and they're ready to share their wisdom both with her and with one another. First woman says, cultivate that ability to find something you have in common with another person, even if you have very different backgrounds, different beliefs, different points of view. Because if you can do that and find that one piece, you can build on that and build a relationship, and your life will be richer for the diversity of those relationships. The next woman then talks about being true to yourself and not falling victim to chasing what the media or other people think is the ideal way to look or the ideal way to dress or the ideal way to be. The next woman shares her thoughts on how to build a network of friendships that will actually support and sustain you for the rest of your life, and you will need that network during different points when you run into the inevitable challenges. The next woman then talks about standing up for yourself and finding your voice, and so on around the circle, woman after woman after woman, sharing these really precious gifts of wisdom. And those are the two parts of a coming-of-age event. Set of challenges that reinforce the lessons that you want to teach, and the community coming together to share wisdom. We're not quite done yet. This is a ritual, so it needs an ending. So the coming of age team, down at Riverbend Park, around the kid, we say, listen, congratulations, you made it through your coming of age event. We want you to know, and you need to remember, that we are not bystanders in your life. We're not spectators. We're here for you. We're here to support you during this transition and for the rest of your life. Now, words are nice, but you really need to back them up with some action that shows that you really mean it. How could we show that we really mean it? Here's how. All the adults and the kid, we turn and we run and we plunge into the chutes. Sounds enticing, right? I still am cold just thinking about it. But it is a spectacular way to end an event. Now, you may be thinking to yourself, that sounds fun. Maybe it sounds interesting, except for the jumping in the river part. But was it impactful? Did it matter to your kids? Well, our kids are now 22 and 20 and 16. They're all still on speaking terms with us, I'm proud to say, so that's a victory of sorts, I think. But what we've seen as we see them grow is that the impacts of these events actually increase as their life unfolds in front of them, as they run into situations where they can draw upon those lessons, or a piece of wisdom that maybe didn't make great sense when they were 13 really applies now, and they say, I get it. Or they run into a situation where they think, here's somebody, who's not my parent, importantly, that I can call upon in my coming-of-age team. They'll know exactly what to do. They'll know the advice to give. I will share this one quote with you. When we told our kids I'd be doing this talk and calm them down that we weren't going to reveal any big secrets, we asked them to really reflect on what were the impacts. And one of our sons said this: it was at my coming-of-age event that I really started realizing, hey, I got to start thinking about becoming a man and what that means. And I decided that day that I wanted to be a good man, modeled after the guys in my coming-of-age team. So it's impactful, yes. Thanks. I asked them to put tissues around, and some in my, I missed mine. Now, if you create a coming-of-age event for a child in your life, it will be unique. It will be unique to the child. It's going to be unique to the things that you want to teach. It will be entirely unique to your values. But it will also be the same. It'll be the same as what so many kids have gone through the course of human history. You'll be giving them a gift, bringing together a community that highlights the moment that that child begins their journey to adulthood, and you'll be marking the trail for them along the way. And I truly hope that you will. Thank you.